Hey, this is Omkar here, and I'm with SeanTheCaptain. Today we'll be talking about changes that we feel like would be good for the game, and stuff that, just changes that I think would be generally good for the game in the long term and the short term.
Yeah, and this is obviously for Star Wars Force Arena.
Oh yeah, that's right. Star Wars Force Arena, that's right. So anyways, the first thing I want to talk about is light versus light and dark versus dark. This was tested out in draft mode, and I had a lot of fun with it. I understand that there may be some problems when putting it in with balance, but I feel like the game should be balanced around basically all the cards together. Like I can understand the theming of it, but I do feel like some dark side leaders would fight dark side leaders. For example, I think General Grievous and Darth Maul would not have a very happy confrontation. So it makes some sense in lore. Yeah.
I think it would open the game and the players and the community up to seeing kind of like what things are kind of broken. Because like, let's say like you have two versus, let's say, a Callus, and then they both play their slow ATST push, and you can kind of like figure out like, man, this isn't really fun gameplay.
Yeah, I think that's actually right, because if you're playing against things that are not fun against your own side, you're more willing to say, yeah, this needs to be changed for the sake of the game. And I do think, I feel like Netmarble sometimes like treads on eggshells to not piss people off. For example, the Tarkin nerf, they nerfed Net instead of Tarkin himself when he was overpowered. It kind of messed up the balancing a little bit, but I can see why they did it. So I think they have to be more willing to piss people off, even though they are paying for the game. And they're paying, some people pay like $75 to $300 a week apparently. So yeah, that's funny. So anyways, the first change is the general change. The tower damage, I know they nerfed the damage towards leaders. I don't think that was a good change. Maybe a little bit, but I feel like the amount they did is too much. I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but I think they should probably cut it about in half. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that when they actually did the whole nerf to leaders in general, and then like they didn't take the leader damage towers down at the same time, it was kind of like a messed up decision, because now you can play a bunch of troops around your leader, but they can all get beaten by the enemy leader and do nothing towards them, and then your tower is still going to get taken down. It's kind of wonky sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to think that you should actually tank with your own body instead of having your minions tank for you. I'm sure Darth Vader would rather have his minions die instead of him, based on its history. So I don't think that really makes much sense. So the first thing I'd like to see added for the game is some sort of nerve gas effect that's universal on the Rebel side. And this is primarily to slow down a lot of suicide tactics by Callus, Grand Inquisitor, Darth Vader. Things like this should have an easier counter, other than just hope they don't deal too much damage and kill them before they do stuff.
Even like if you do kill the Grand Inquisitor or Callus or even Vader, they can just spam units behind them, or you have to deal with the ATSC that's standing behind them, and then that takes 6 seconds to take down, and then they're back.
Yeah, it's like, that's also one thing I want to talk about. So not only should dealing with suicide leaders should be a little bit easier, I also think that the spawn timer is pretty much too rewarding to suicide meta. So oftentimes, I will send my character into the enemy tower just to commit suicide because I know that they don't have enough energy and I want some more health. I think that's pretty ridiculous. I think the spawn timer should have a flat 5 seconds at the beginning and then increase by 1 second every time. So if the enemy leader committed suicide 5 times, they'd have a 10-second spawn timer, and that's going to really, really hurt them.
Yeah, there should definitely be more of a punishment, because like I've had multiple games, and they're on my YouTube channel, of me killing Callus 6-7 times in a game, 5, 6, 7 times, and they just keep coming back after 8 seconds, and they can just put units behind them, which 5 seconds to get through if it's at level 8, like with your units. So yeah, it's tough to really stop that, because then they're back in 3 seconds. They can put a TIE bomber, and then everything's wiped out.
Yeah. I kind of see that they want to promote active gameplay, but the thing is, if they take out the strategies, like the decision making in the game, it becomes kind of mindless, and that's not really very fun for either side, I believe. Because committing suicide again and again and again probably will get very boring, even for the player winning by doing it. So, I also think one thing they could possibly do, I don't know, I just thought of this right now, maybe they could decrease the spawn timer for the health packs in the back. This is so that like if your push fails, you don't have to all in. You can go back and heal, and then maybe like try to fight it out again and reset. But I'm not sure how this will play out. This might make things a little bit too passive. But this is just a random thought, possibly.
But any change is good change.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think at this moment in time, they need to create more diversity in gameplay. And this isn't like, I'm not trying to say like, more gender diversity. This is just like gameplay diversity, so they get things. That's his dog in the background chewing something, by the way. Don't worry about that. One thing I do want to see happen is that I feel like Bladesmen are a little bit too strong right now on the Empire side. And the problem, you might think that this is good for Empire, but sort of not really. Because this means that if you're not running Bladesmen, and no matter what deck you're running, you're at a disadvantage. You have to run Bladesmen. And this is the same thing with Partisan, but we'll get to that one later. So the problem with Bladesmen right now is that they can shred a tank, and not only can they shred a tank, they're quick, and they can move to the tower and then shred the tower if they survive. But they have a lot of health, so they can do that. So they're quick, they have a lot of damage, and they got a decent amount of health. So they basically don't have very many downsides. So in my opinion, I think they should have a role of shredding tanks, because there's no other role card in Empire that does that. I know Heavy Gunners do that, but come on, Heavy Gunners aren't really a card. They either remove them or change them. They shouldn't be in the game at this moment. Anyways, Blade's damage nerf to towers, I believe, should be around 33%. They did it to Resilient Warrior to stop some sort of bullshit backdooring tactics, and I feel like Bladesmen could have that same sort of treatment.
Yeah, and I mean, it also gets to the point where Bladesmen are also so good and tanky that you can place both of them down and then run in with the Grand Inquisitor or Callus, and you'll still have one Bladesman plus yourself at a turret, and then that's like half a turret right there.
And if you tank for your Bladesman, especially with the tower nerf, you can literally finish the tower yourself in like, I don't know, 10... I don't even think 10 seconds, like 5 seconds or so. It's really fucking stupid. I don't think that's a good idea to have it happen. That shouldn't be in the game, in my opinion. So, speaking of Callus, I feel like flat bonus percentages to your leader are really fucking stupid in general, because why not just add them in stats? They're basically free stats. For example, 10% more damage to units, I kind of get that, but why not just give him like 5% more damage in general, so he's 5% damage to units and 5% damage to leaders? I think that's a really stupid sort of constant buff, so my proposed change is that he should deal 50% damage to stunned units. So when he stuns people with his staff skill or with his stun grenade, this is primarily to weaken his overall DPS unless he commits to something.
The problem gets to being, and I kind of talked about this in my just rant video, but the problem is that Callus does 10% more damage to troops, and almost every single rebel leader buffs their troops. So when you like really look at it, it's almost like a perfect counter, because almost every like rebel leader and light side leader buffs their troops except like Yoda. So for him to be able to wipe out what's getting buffed because he has that like a buff against it, it kind of fucks up, and then he can stun the whole push, and then he can die, and then he has an ATSD behind him. Like, it gets repetitive to the point, so every time I see Callus, I'm like, I just kind of want to have a forfeit button.
Yeah, I think they should have a forfeit button too, but I don't know about that one yet. I think that might be a good idea, because sometimes I face against like a level 6 hero with like level 16 or level 17 cards, and I'm like, I don't really want to play this game right now.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't want to put that in this video. That's just my opinion. I just don't like play against that. So I feel like Callus is probably the best rebel side leader at this moment in time, and it's specifically because he does so much damage to units. And I think he could give him more of an assassin role by if you stun something, he can kill it quicker. But having constant damage doesn't seem very fair because he's already high DPS. With Boba Fett, he's got 12% damage to leaders, but his DPS is low. So it makes sense that Boba Fett has it, but Callus is just too good to have that sort of buff right now. So speaking of ATSD, we're proposing an ATSD range nerf of about 0.5 to 1. And this is because, since they changed the ATSD from having to finish its step before it attacks, once it hits max range, it can attack instantly. And I understand why they did it. They did it to have it consistent so it feels better. But right now, it's too hard to counter it with turret and time it well and have your turret shoot at the same time. And you should be able to use your turret and your placed turret to fight an ATSD because it's a giant 7 energy card.
The last 2 patches ago, they kind of did a secret nerf or a secret buff to the ATSD when that step, because now it's at 8.5 range, and then your turret is at like but your tower and your turret can't hit them at the same time. Like, you can't place your turret right in front of, like, right on the little left in front and have them both hit.
Yeah.
So it kind of just slows it down, but then the units start coming through at the same time, and then you're just like, well, this didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's just kind of too hard to counter the ATSD meta right now, and I think you guys, if you're playing the game right now, and like basically, I don't know, like 5 ranks down from the top, you'll probably see a lot of ATSDs there, and you'll just see constant slow pushes again and again because it's the best thing to do right now. So I think to nerf ATSD would make a lot of sense for balance. And speaking of ranking power cards, I feel like MTV should be nerfed a little bit because it's too strong at backdooring for what a tank is. So on the light side, you have a tank that's tanky, slow, but doesn't do a lot of damage. The thing about MTV is it does a lot of damage, it's tanky, and it's fast. So it has basically no weakness compared to the Rebel side tank. So I'm proposing like a 0.2 speed nerf at least, maybe 0.3 or so, to make sure that at least when you see it come down, you have time to react to it. So yeah.
It's like a 0.5, in like half a second it can be on your tower, but also because of the fucking scrolling issue that has been in this game since the patch, you can't always scroll down and like try to stop a split push with it. And I think some people know that and kind of take advantage of it, but that kind of issue makes it so you have to have like the quickest reaction time without a scroll issue just to be able to get something in front to kind of stop it.
Yeah, and it's really obnoxious. I think it's the same thing with Ahsoka, but I don't really want to touch Anakin right now. I feel like Anakin does need a nerf, but since he's a new character, I want to see more evidence first, even though I think he's pretty blatantly like one of the best characters in the game right now, but I think there should be more testing and evidence to see how that goes out before anything's changed on that one. So yeah.
Anakin being nerfed is, for some reason, in 2v2 right now, Anakin is everywhere. Like, I played 6 games, and 5 of them were with an Anakin.
Yeah, he's insane. I basically play Anakin on 2v2 right now, and the only time I've lost was because I had a Leia who didn't know how to defend a turret, so other than that, I haven't lost a single game when playing Anakin. It's literally insane. But even so, I think they could probably nerf his stun range, because he pulls them in, then stuns them. I feel like the pull makes sense, but the stun maybe could be toned down a little bit. I'm not too sure on that one, though. They probably have to figure it out with, actual designers instead of us.
Right.
Yeah. So also, one thing I want to say is that I feel like a lot of Rebel leaders have pretty weak area of effect and passives compared to the dark side, and I think this is pretty pronounced. If you compare most of the light side leader versus dark side leaders, I feel like the dark side leaders are significantly stronger. So I feel like I don't know, for example, a similar counterpart to Krennic would be Lando, right? But Lando's so much weaker than Krennic in terms of energy generation and damage. Even though he has some area of effect, that's not enough. So it's either give him more area of effect to compensate for the fact he can't generate as much energy or deal as much burst damage. Something like that.
Yeah. As I said earlier, every single Rebel leader, besides, like, again, Yoda, has some kind of buff to their units. Like, Leia has a 20% movement speed. Sabine has a explosive damage on units, and then Jyn has an 18% mobile range, and then Cassian has a range. And then all these Empire leaders have area of effect to take down units quickly, like Palpatine, or Bossk, or Dengar, or Boba Fett, or Kallus, or the 40th Vader. You just keep going on. If like 40th Luke has another one, it's like one of the only characters that has a built-in AOE,
and it's not even that big.
Like,
yeah. Sorry, I cut you off a little bit there. So yeah, just not enough area of effect for Rebel side leaders. And I think they admitted this a little bit by releasing the new ones, which have a lot of area of effect. Yoda has an insane amount of area of effect. Hera has an insane amount of area of effect. And I think this is basically their admission to realize that all our Rebel leaders suck because they have no area of effect. So I figured maybe compensate for it somehow, or at least rework and give them area of effect, something like that. I don't know. They need some sort of thing. So this is one thing about equalizing between light side and dark side. I feel like oftentimes dark side gets the really good big cards and light side gets the really good small cards. And I feel like if you were to roll swap it, for example, if light side got an ATTE and Darkseid got an ATPE or something. It's like a smaller thing. I don't really know these that well. They sound the same to me, honestly. But if you kind of give him like bigger and smaller cards, just roll swap him a little bit, you'd have a more equalized side. And I think that would, I don't know, I think it would change the game up a bit, and I'd like that.
It was a good like kind of them admitting with the Clone Wars patch, because the Separatists are a bunch of tiny small units, and they're pretty good in bulk, which is exactly what like the light side got with the Marauder army and like all those other weird units that nobody uses. But so now that they're like kind of admitting that, maybe like we'll see that ATTE on the light side, and they'll finally have something that kind of is like an ATAT or ATST, any one of the two. They can just keep adding things, but I definitely agree giving Darkseid some smaller cards, because every Darkseid deck is built on 4 cards: Bladesman, Dewback, MTV, and ATST.
Absolutely, those are the core.
And
of the
those
decks.
are like the high tanky units, and then most Rebel decks are based off like Pathfinder and Ion Mine, and that's usually the 3
Partisan.
I see.
Yeah, Partisan too. Did you say Partisan? I don't know if you did.
Yeah, that one's there.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, also, assuming they do all these changes on the Empire side, I do feel like Partisan is one of those cards where it's like Bladesman, where it has the whole package, it's a lot of damage, it's very tanky, and it's very quick. So what I'm thinking for Partisan is actually like a small speed nerf. So it's kind of like a powerhouse like a Gorian, like you put it in the right place at the right time, it'll destroy the enemy. But having it be able to destroy the enemy then counter push really, really effectively doesn't really make a lot of sense. I guess they could nerf its tower damage too. I don't know. They could do that. But I feel like just a speed nerf makes a lot more sense for this card. Especially since it's a ranged unit. Since Bladesmen are melee units, they have to be fast. Or relatively fast.
Agree with that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just thought of this right now. This is just like a random thought. What if they balance cards solely on pick rate? So, for example, since AT&T's picked a lot, they should nerf it. Or Partisan's picked a lot, so they should nerf it. But Callus has picked a lot, so they should nerf it. Anakin's picked a lot, so they should nerf it. What do you think about that sort of balancing? I don't know, ideal.
And they could, but then like they'll have all the leaders on the same plane, which will be fun. But then it's like, I don't know. I feel like they need to fix Sabine's range issue before they like start really deciding like what to nerf, because there's just issues. I mean, everyone has their own playstyle, and some people can play Sabine really well, some people can play Ezra really well, some people can still play Cassian really well. But I just think that there's a specific part of the meta that just needs to be looked at, and it's usually above rank 5,800, and then it's just all the same players
doing the same thing.
The rest of the game.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I think the meta right now is slow push and then destroy your enemy through one big push, or a split push with the slow push on the other side. Anakin's doing it, Callus is doing it, all the strongest characters are doing it. I think even Urza's doing it too, and Urza's like, not even top tier. He's like, good, I guess, at best. So, yeah, it'd be nice to see a meta change. I think Hera's the only one who, in Jin, are the ones who don't follow the meta, but that's because their kit specifically allows them to not do the meta, because Jin's poke, and since Hera's all about getting the chopper, you just cycle your deck and you swarm. So, yeah, anything to add?
No, I think these are going to be things to look forward to, and hopefully we'll see as more cards get released. But this is just the current state right now, and why it's so awkward and frustrating sometimes to play a couple games.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm going to just do a TLDR real quick, actually. I think light versus light, dark versus dark, you should be able to face the same card, the same side, because it was shown in draft mode, it was fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot. It'd be really, really fun. Tower damage to heroes should be increased, not decreased. Maybe not. Well, decreased from what it is now, but not actually increased. Nerve gas for rebels would make a lot of sense. I guess you could put adrenaline for Empire side, but since Empire seems to be at a slight advantage right now, don't add that in yet, see how it reacts. Dying should be more punishing. Suicide timer maybe 5 and add 1 second every time without a cap. And if you do put a cap, put it at like 15 seconds where it's ridiculous. You'll never hit it anyway, so you'll just lose by the time you get to it. Bladesmen, tower damage nerf should be reduced because they're too good at everything, and the only counter to them is bomber. or stun grenade, but even if you stun them, they're probably tanky enough to survive. Callus should have a nerf where he should do more damage to units because he's already very good at that. He should have more of an assassin role of more damage to things that are stunned, so he's more interesting instead of just, slow push suicide. ATSD's range nerf in order to balance it out after they let it do max range all the time, and I know it's for consistency, so I'll have it consistently have less range. MTV is too fast and too good at counter pushing, so nerfing its speed a little bit would help a lot because it's too good compared to the Rebel side tank for how cheap it is compared to that one. More area effect for Rebel side leaders, or compensate it with something because they seem very weak for what they are and what they do, or maybe not area effect for them, or give their unique area effects, something like that. Partisan can be nerfed if all these things do go through, because Partisan is that kind of role, and it does balance. It single-handedly balances between Empire and Rebel side. Even though it's the best card in the game, single-handedly, it's still not good enough to compensate for all the Empire bullshittery. Empire should get smaller cards, and Rebel side should get bigger cards to balance it out a little bit more. Especially, this is important if you want to have light versus light and dark versus dark to allow more options. ATTE and ATPE are good options to add in the game. And yeah, anything I missed?
No, but everyone keep enjoying your Suicide Leias and Grand Inquisitor and Calluses, and just keep going.
Fucking do it, dude. I'm gonna quit this game. Keep doing it. Fuck y'all. Alright. Well, this is Ankara, and this is SeanTheCaptain. I'll leave a link to his channel, or he'll leave a link to my channel, whoever posts it. Probably he's going to post it because I suck at this editing bullshit. So I'll see y'all next time, and yeah, have a good one. Peace out.
Enjoy.